Thank you for tuning in. Things are going pretty good on the channel. Got a bunch of good interviews coming up. But before I start dropping more interviews and more topic videos, and please, like I said, I appreciate all you guys that are subscribing, the new people that are coming into the channel, the comments and everything. Let me know what you guys want to see. Other stuff you want me to talk about. I have plenty of stuff, plenty of information. So I'm there's no lack of that on my end, but I want to hear from you guys as well. There's 325 of you watching this channel at any given point in time, and the views kind of match the subs. This video is a continuation of the Perro Pampas Argentino video. So the video that I did originally, like I said, that was the first video that has been translated. That information has been translated from Spanish into English and then broadcast. And so I'm not sure of his position, but I think he may be the president of the breed club or one of the administrators of the breed club for the dog in Argentina. Saw my video, and we spoke. And, he appreciated what I did. And he said if I needed any help or needed any more information, that, to give him a call. Not a call, but, well, I guess I could call him, but, just to let him know. And so I sent him a list of questions that I had about the breed. And he went ahead and translated everything for me. So what I'm going to do is I got the questions on my phone. So if you see me looking down, I'm going to be reading the questions that I asked him. And then I'm going to read his responses. And this man's name is Lisandro Libac. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that right. You can see it up on the screen there. Libaak, Lisandro Libac from Argentina. So let me pull up. Someone's texting me. I'm going to finish this first. So let me pull up these questions here. But before I go into the questions, he gave me a little bit more about the origins of the breed. So I'm going to go ahead and read that, per what he gave me. So the origins of the Perro Pampas Argentino were casual. And I'm going to do some explaining, just to give a little bit more insight. So basically that means that it was something that just kind of happened. It wasn't necessarily planned. But it was a fortuitous event. Like I said, not something that was planned. And I haven't read all of this. So a lot of this stuff, I'm reading it and hearing it for the first time with you guys that are tuning in. So therefore, it is not that a certain number of bloodlines. Hold on. Let me go back, because this is actually, because like I said, so the question that I asked him was, how many different lines does the breed have, and what's the difference, if any, in these lines? So what he's saying here is, therefore, it is not that a certain number of bloodlines, but rather these dogs gave rise to the Pampa were the product of crossbreeding with different purposes: fighting, hunting, guarding, etc. So basically what he's saying is you had a group of people that wanted to fight with these dogs, a group of people that wanted to hunt with them, a group of people that wanted to guard with them, and then groups of people who just wanted them just to be around, maybe for other working purposes on farms and things like that. And so that later ended up forming part of the current Pampa. Although the history of the Pampa begins from the crossbreeding of the Dogo Argentino and the American Staffordshire Terrier, which is a show line of the American Pit Bull Terrier, other breeds also entered indirectly. And he's saying that is through these various, like he said, not necessarily lines, but various abilities that these people wanted to bring out, with this breed. So, since many of these specimens that were later used were not purebred dogs, but were also Dogo crosses with other breeds that perform the same functions. So in these dogs, the influence of other breeds were noticeable. For example, in some line, a mix of Dogo and Great Dane was used, and you could see it in that bloodline. that the size and the structure is influenced by this breed. Also, the same with other breeds in other bloodlines. With the passing of time, these dogs cross with each other. So this is very similar to what happened with the Presa, but no one has really gone, besides myself that I've seen. I haven't watched all of Curto's videos, but I have read his book, as many of you know that saw the presentation that I did. But I tell a lot of people that the Presa Canario, the Bardino was obviously the base dog, but they used multiple breeds to go into it. The Great Dane was one, and other different types of Mastiffs, and the Amstaff was one as well. But they were done according to the breeders, what those particular people were looking for. So they may have used 2 dogs in the Bardino. This guy used 5 in this, and then those dogs started to interbreed with each other, and there's similar is what he's saying here. So he says also the same with other breeds in the bloodline. With the passing of time, these dogs cross with each other, somewhat homogenizing the phenotype. I always talk about phenotypes and genotypes, and giving rise to the Pampa. Later, we met and organized a group of breeders who had been working with these dogs, and we defined some criteria. So now they're talking about getting into standard. He says we defined a standard and decided to direct the breeding towards the same end. Some new bloodlines were created at the discretion of some breeders to expand the genetic pool existing at that time a bit. I wonder if this goes into the next question. Okay, so my next question that I asked him was, do you see a lot of variation or phenotypes in the litter? He said at this time the litters are quite homogeneous. The segregation, and he's got that in quotes, factors compromises some of the puppies that appear from time to time with more white than allowed by the standard. So it must be taken into account that these patterns and spots, just like the standard of the Perro Papa Argentino, were determined a few years ago. Because mind you, this dog, like I said, if you watch the first part, 1980 is when this started. So where did I leave off here? So it must be taken into account that these patterns of spots, just like the standard of the Perro Pampa Argentino, were determined a few years ago. Therefore, some of the aesthetic details, such as the arrangement of the white spots on the body, have not yet been fully established. For example, puppies are born with a white collar, something that a few years ago we decided not to accept it. So the dogs that were up to that moment with white collars were left out. Were left out of the ideal Pampa. An ideal in quote. So what he's saying is, what he's meaning to say is, for the dogs that would go on to represent what they wanted to breed to be physically. But he's saying that these other dogs, he's not saying that he's discrediting these dogs and saying that they're not Pampas. He's saying, but for the ideal dog. So I'm going to lose my place. So let me pull this up. And where were we? Okay. So for the ideal Pampas, which will take a few generations of selection to make those white collared dogs gradually decrease. But as I mentioned before, these are only aesthetic details, like I just said, that were defined by the majority. Personally, the color or the spots that a dog has are one of the things that really interest me in the least. So that's something that you deal with the Presa Canario, where you see guys who've got dogs that have more than 20 or 30% white, depending on how their dogs are registered and what standard that they're under. So, and a lot of people say that now just in general about breeds, like, well, I don't really care, I'm not breeding for color, even though there are some breeders and some breeds that they are breeding and selling their dogs based on color, because that is the main selling point of their dogs, because that's really all they have to offer is fancy looks. So he's saying that that's an interest in the least, but there's still a standard. So my next question was, how would you rate their prey drive on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the highest? He said, I think if I were to rate the prey drive of a Pampa from 1 to 10, I would place it somewhere between 8 and 9. These dogs have a good prey drive instinct, but I think that the virtues of the Pampa do not go through this point. they go through the whole. The Pampa is a dog that is generally docile, affectionate, active, intelligent, and has a natural guard instinct. In general, it is not a dog with very high levels of anxiety or aggressiveness, which the reason I asked that is because if you're familiar with the Dogo Argentino and how it was created with the old Cordoba fighting dog, and then with the Amstaff, that is an American Pit Bull Terrier show line. So some Amstaffs can still show some of these same dog aggressive qualities as an American Pit Bull Terrier. These are game dogs. And Dogo Argentinos are known to be same-sex aggressive, more so with the males than with the females. So let's move up again so I don't keep losing my place here. No, where were I? So he said it has a good prey instinct, but not in an exaggerated way. So that means it's controllable. I think that if we are talking about purely guard and protection dogs, clearly there are better breeds for this. And with the greater predispositions to those works. But precisely, in my opinion, this is what makes the Pampa a better family companion, a more docile and calm, easy to raise dog. It does not have the constant anxiety characteristics of dogs that all they want to do is work. I think the Pampa is an excellent companion for the family, the home, an excellent guardian when the situation warrants it. So my next question was, being that the breed, and so he corrected some of the stuff that I said, and you know me, I'm someone who's against any kind of misinformation. So if I said something, and I've done this before in other interviews, I've gone back and corrected myself. You know, I'm an adult, I'm a man, and I have no problem doing that. I don't like leaving things incorrect. So if I get and I'm new to this breed, most people have never heard of this breed of canine. So he corrected some of the things that I said in the previous video that I did, and that's a good thing. That's why I wanted to do this. So my question was, where were we at? Because I keep losing my place. Okay, so I think I skipped. Okay, so yeah, being that the breed is half Dogo Argentino, this is my question. Have you had any issues with the hearing? Because people know if you have dogs with solid white coats or a lot of white, the lack of pigmentation, and he talks about that because I did go over this a little bit with myself. They are known to be inherently deaf a lot of times, and the puppies can come out deaf in one ear or both ears or no ears. So he said, I think it is a misconception, and he talked about that because he said that the Great Dane and a few other dogs were put into the Dogo, and then those dogs were put into each other. So he said, I think it is a misconception to define the Pampa as half Dogo Argentino. This is not true, although there is a huge contribution of Dogo Argentino blood, but there are several breeds that make it up, and it would be imprudent to talk about what percentages of each race present in the Pampas. So he said, in more than 20 years with these dogs, I have never seen a Pampa with hearing problems. So it's, crossbreeding Dogos into other dogs seems to correct it. And that's what he's saying. He said, I understand that many times deafness in dogs is related to the lack of pigmentation of the ear membrane, which is common in white dogs, as well as a greater predisposition to skin problems. There's again. Therefore, in the Pampas, we do not have these problems. He said, I said, my next question was, is there any dog aggression, being that the Dogo Argentino can be same-sex aggressive and the American Staffordshire Terrier can also be dog aggressive? He says, regarding aggressiveness, they are generally calm and docile dogs, and they can live with other pets without problems, except for adult male. So that is something that did pass on, is that same-sex aggressions. He says, I do not think that two adult male Pampas can live together in peace. Same thing sometimes with the Presa Canario. Even though I was talking to a friend of mine in Florida who has Presas, and she's dealt with other breeds of dogs, a Patterdale. Shout out to Andrea. We talk all the time. That's my homie. And we were talking about how the Presa is more accepting of Presas than it is of other breeds of dogs because they have such a high IQ that they know their own race. My next question was, I said, so I noticed in the drawings, and you saw those in the previous video, in the drawings of the dogs with all the different faults as far as colors, how did they decide on the actual patterns of the coat for the standard? He said, regarding the color patterns, as well as all of the other physical and physiological characteristics, they were defined in the standard that we, the breeders who worked on this project from the beginning, created together. So it's a group effort. The standard was conceived taking into account that the qualities and characteristics already existing in our dogs, and thinking about the ideal to aim for, unifying a criteria among all the breeders involved in the development of this breed. And this next question is very important, and I'm going to expand on that a little bit, just in dog terminology and physical attributes and color in general. I said, have you seen any blue coats in the breed, being that some of the dogs are solid black or almost black? And because anybody who knows Presa people, listen up, and I've said this before, if you're breeding black dogs to black dogs consistently, American, anybody with black, you're going to end up with blue dogs at some point in time, whether it's 1, 5, 10, or 20 throughout the years. He said, regarding the color patterns as well, sorry, let me move. This is why I need to keep moving this up. He said, regarding the blue coat, I saw some puppies like this at some point in time ago. So there it is. So anybody out here, I saw a guy make a comment on another guy's Presa page who was really uninformed about the breed, saying that, oh, soon they're going to be calling dilute Presas. Well, if you breeding two Presas that are genetically 100% Presa Canario black, and you get a blue dog, so are you telling me that dog is no longer a Presa? I mean, sometimes the ignorance of people who claim to be experts and have all this knowledge about breeds, it's hilarious to me, but it's heartbreaking at the same time because it's very moronic. People like to pick and choose their bullshit. But he said that, he saw some puppies like this at some point ago, clearly inherited from one of the breeds present in that bloodline. This coloration is not desired. In the Perro, Pampas, Argentino, only 2 variants are allowed. Black or black brindle with or without white spots are allowed, but only in those 2 color variants. Says, the breed has been raised. Oh, sorry. I got to read my next question. Jumping ahead of myself. I said, so my next question was, what activities is the breed being used for, such as hunting, farm work, weight pulling, etc. He said the breed has been raised and selected as a guard dog for family life. That is its primary function. Beyond that fact, that the dogs are very versatile and can fulfill other functions. So my next question is, are you working to get the dog recognized by the international registrations, or will it remain a local breed? Sometimes remaining local is best, especially when dogs start coming over here, because we tend to ruin stuff. But don't think that they're not doing that in other countries as well. But it happens a lot over here. He says, from the Association of the Perro de Pampas Argentino, the APPA, we have been working initially to establish the desired qualities in these dogs to consolidate this new breed. At first, one of our objectives was for our breed to be accepted by the Argentine. I can never say this, so it's like whatever. I'm just gonna abbreviate. So the ACF, which is the Argentine. It's like the FCI in Argentina. An objective that we have achieved a few months ago. So the Argentine Breed Club has accepted it, and this guy's a part of the parent breed club. In February of this year, 2023, the ACF opened the initial records for our breed. I think that if we continue with the work, we have been doing, it will be inevitable that the Argentine Pampa dog will be recognized worldwide. It is a matter of time. My next question was, have you seen any abnormalities or health problems in this breed? And if so, what are they? He says, I have not seen any anomalies or health problems in the breed. They're very healthy, strong, and rustic dogs. And that's not, and that's the thing is, when you start to do line breedings and things like that, sometimes that can bring out traits. Maybe this dog will skip that and it will prove to be something new in the canine world. That would be interesting to see. So we'll look out for that because the breed has not left the country yet. I'm hoping to import some of these dogs. Honestly, that's something I'm seriously considering here within the next year. So my next question was, what do you think, if anything, will set this breed apart from other breeds? He said, I think that the things that make the Pampas different from other breeds is, on one hand, their health, how healthy, strong, and rustic they are, and on the other hand, the balance between being docile, affectionate, calm, and affectionate dog with their family, and that explosiveness, strength, determination, and instinct when it comes to fulfilling its function as a guard dog. So, like to hear that. And so here he's clarifying some things that I said, in the previous video. He said he would like to clarify a couple things regarding the previous video. The word pampa is used in the Argentine countryside to refer to a certain type of white spot on a horse's face. The term pampa horse or pampa faced is used to describe that they have a white stripe on their face, and this is why our dogs have that name. So pampas does mean what I said, but what he's saying is that is not the name that is attached. Why it is attached to the breed? It's attached to the breed because of what he just explained. The white stripe on the face of a horse, and they wanted to bring that over to their dog. So let's see. This is why our dogs have that name, due to the characteristic white stripe that most of them had at that time. It has nothing to do with the type of geographical landscape or grassy land. So he's saying Pampas does mean that, but that's not why we did that, and that's not why it's called that. Another point I would like to clarify is that, because that was pretty sure that was my last question. Yeah, that was it. So another point that I would like to clarify is that the talk of the genotype, man, I already love this guy because he's talking about genotypes. And this is very important. So if any reptile people are watching, genotypes, because I rarely hear anybody in the reptile world talk about genotypes. I don't know if just because they don't know it, they're not mentioning it, but it's important. So if you're not mentioning it, shame on you. The genotype and phenotype, since many times there are dogs that can have a phenotype similar to a Pampas, a Perro Pampas Argentino, but that dog may not be a Pampas in its genotype. For example, there are dogs that are crossbreeds of a dogo with some other breed that can be very similar to a Pampa. And this is like band dog, because you see a lot of these band dogs resemble Presa Canario, and this is what he's saying. He's explaining this, and I've said this. So, for example, there are dogs that are crossbreeds of dogo with some other breeds that can have very similar traits to Pampas on an aesthetic level. What you're seeing, but its genotype is something completely different from a Pampa, just like the offspring that a dog can give. So that was my last question. Shout out to Lissandro. I really appreciate you doing this for me. I know your English isn't that great, so I hope that the captions will come up on this and everything will be clear and you can understand it. Or maybe you have someone there, who speaks English and, they can, translate for you, what I'm saying. But I really appreciate it. I'm definitely going to be doing some more stuff on this breed. It's just something, Cayenne Buchanan introduced me to this, and I have an interview with him on my channel And that's how I found out about this dog. I had never seen it, never heard of it. So, I'm glad that he introduced me to it, and I'm glad that I had the opportunity to be the first person to do this, for the breed. And hopefully that this will help the breed get the recognition that it needs internationally and become, recognized worldwide. So just remember, you saw it here first. So, thank you. Peace out. Oh, and before I go, I do have a interview coming up on a reptile channel. I don't know when it'll air, but we're filming on the 30th of this month. I don't know when Dylan will air that. Shout out to Dylan at Animals at Home Canada. You already know, dude. Much respect, love the channel. So if anybody's wanting to learn about reptiles and topics, within that industry, that is the channel to go to. That is the only channel that I recommend as far as multiple topics on reptiles. If you're looking for something specific, the only other channel that I could recommend to you would be the Chondro Bar. Those guys, their focus is mainly on Chondro Python virus or Morelia viridis, the green tree python. Until then, peace out, people.
And that wraps up another episode of NWA Connie Corsos. Thank you for being a part of our Connie Corso community. Remember, you can stay connected with us beyond the podcast. Find us on all major media platforms by searching for NWA Connie Corsos. Whether it's Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, or YouTube. Just hit that follow button to join the conversation and get the latest updates. If you have a burning question or want to apply to be a guest on our show, we'd love to hear from you. Simply shoot us an email at nwaconniecorsos@gmail.com. And if you're a business interested in becoming a sponsor, reach out to us at the same email address. For more resources, exclusive content, and links to all our social media profiles, visit our website at nwaconniecorsos.com. It's your go-to destination for everything dogs. Thank you once again for tuning in, and we can't wait to bring you more exciting episodes where we explore the fascinating world of dogs.